Now let's dive into our panel discussion on mental health in the workplace. Joining us, we have Cameron Johnson and DeGelink. Is that right? Okay, close. Mental health is crucial, and these experts will help us navigate the vital topic. But before we get started, I'll let them do a quick introduction. Cameron, you want to go ahead and start?
Cameron,
I think you're muted.
I would be the one to do that too. So my name is Cameron Johnson. I've been in EH&S and risk management for about 12 years. Very blessed over the last probably 7 years to really to focus in non-traditional EHS for the most part. So I'm blessed to go around the United States, really helping companies at the executive level build EH&S programs, helping do cost modeling, helping develop culture, and go through people who get put into safety positions, help train them, help coach them, where maybe they came from maintenance or operations, and then help build them into EH&S managers and things of that nature, and bridge the gap between EH&S, HR, operations, engineering, etc. So that is now what I do full time at Caddy OHS. And we are a non-traditional consulting firm. We do not do a lot of the day-to-day traditional trainings or things of that nature. We really focus on retainer, where a company is looking just to pay for one singular amount for a whole year, and they get 100% of executive EH&S service. So I'm the vice president of EH&S at Caddy.
Awesome. Thank you. Melissa, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Leger. I'm the founder of Uplift Learning Solutions, and our main goal is to bring mental health first aid into the workplace. So we offer mental health first aid virtually, in person, and really try to start those conversations in the workplace. We're never diagnosing, we're never treating, but to reduce that stigma and help workplaces reduce their costs while improving their company culture. We also offer resiliency trainings for leaders and managers. And a little bit about my experience: I've been in learning and development for quite a while, but I'm also a mental health first aid trainer, and also mindfulness-based stress reduction. So we try to bring that into all of our trainings in a way that is appropriate for the workplace, and hopefully fun and engaging for all of the participants.
Awesome. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Sebastian.
Thank you, Cindy. It's a pleasure to be with Melissa and Cameron today, and with everyone else. My name is Sebastian DeGelink. I'm joining from New Jersey this morning, where I live. And professionally, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Skill Signal. Skill Signal is an all-in-one safety, compliance, and risk control platform. We help a lot of construction companies in the United States and other industrial trade companies. Skill Signal is really about two things. One, everything that needs to happen on a daily, weekly, ad hoc basis related to safety, compliance, or risk control, that are usually happening on paper, paper and pen, manually, cumbersome. We migrate all of that to digital and to field apps. So we just make it easier for people to do it on those devices rather than on paper. And the second thing is we collect for our clients, we collect a lot of data, which we can then also analyze with them so that they have a much better understanding of what's the risk that they're having on the jobs, in the field, on the workplace. But today, this is so we're going to be talking about mental health, and one of the things that we were very, very fortunate to do with Skill Signal is that for a year and a half, we actually partnered with the School of Behavioral Sciences at Princeton University, and we did a joint research with them, which was all about mental health and worker well-being in the workplace, because everyone knows there is a crisis in the United States going on around mental health. So it's certainly something that needs to be researched, needs to be talked about, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing with all of you today. So really looking forward to it.
Thank you. And not right now, but maybe after the panel, if you guys can all just kind of drop your LinkedIn or contact information for everyone, that would be great. Also, yeah, so sorry. Well, lost my train of thought a little bit, but that's awesome. So this first question, so we went on the Safety Nights platform, asked the community some questions that they wanted answered regarding mental health. And then I had some questions that I had drafted up as well. We'll try to get through as many of these as we can. And, I'll ask all three of you for some of them, or, and just whoever wants to answer, you're more than welcome to. And yeah, let's just get started. So the first question that I had was, how does mental health affect our safety record? So anyone want to take that one?
So I can start. So it's about how it affects mental health, the culture.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were talking about the crisis that's going on in construction. That's the industry that I know best. But I think it's probably happening in a lot of other industrial places where there is just a lot of pressure. And when you combine activities that carry a lot of risks, so people can get injured very easily, and people can also be distressed in their own heads, it has an immediate impact. So I think that correlation between people coming to a job and they're going to be doing dangerous things, and they're coming to the workplace with a whole bunch of things happening in their heads, is probably not a great place to start. So that's why it's so important that we and I think, contrary to a lot of beliefs, you unfortunately cannot check off your head at the entrance of the job. You can't just leave what's going on in your head at the entrance and then everything is fine and do your job. Those things are going to continue to affect your performance, what you're going to be doing, and especially also how we work together on those job sites. So I think that's kind of the way that I see the immediate correlation between between the mental health and the activities that are going on in those workplaces.
Yeah, that's a great point. Melissa, Cameron, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, I love what Sebastian said, and I completely agree. You can't just turn off whatever's going on outside of work and then show up and everything's clear. I think the other thing to add on, though, is when it comes to workplace safety, if there's an injury, it's also going to affect your mental health outside of work. And then the recovery time is actually higher, is going to take longer for workplace injuries compared to non-workplace injuries. So these two things are not separate. And as a workplace, we really need to invest and spend time on this, because it is a crisis and there's no way we can ignore it and say that these two things are separate, or it's just an individual thing that we have to work on outside of work.
Awesome. Cameron?
Yeah, the one thing I was going to say is obviously mental health really affects a lot of things. And one thing that we do obviously is go in and help with culture. And what I see with mental health in the workplace and the majority of the industries, whether it be construction, which obviously has a very high self-harm rate, or mining, things of that nature, or manufacturing, is calculated risks, right? So if I am at work, and we see this in general through typical injuries, it doesn't mean I have malicious intent or I bypassed this security or this safety feature because I wanted to get injured. In my mind, I calculated the risk and decided that I'm either being more safe than somebody else who'd been injured or whatnot, and I made the decision that it's safe for me to do so. The example that I give to a lot of people is texting and driving. How many people in here text and drive? How many email and drive? We know it kills people on a regular basis, except we've calculated the risk that it's okay. The one thing about mental health that I'll say is that calculated risk changes substantially, right? If would you text and drive if your wife was sitting in the car, if your 2-year-old was in the back seat? Probably not, right? Because the calculated risk is so much higher. When you have mental health I don't like to use the word issues, but you have challenges that you're facing, those calculated risks change completely. They may not care about a 2-year-old in the back seat because they're struggling with maybe a financial aspect, or maybe they don't care about the machine guard or lockout and tag out a machine because the safety slogan of the company is we want you to leave in one, the same way you came. Keep, 10 fingers as you come in, 10 fingers as you leave. That may not matter. So that's kind of my key point, is it really from the culture side, understanding that mental health, as far as safety records go, is really going to affect how somebody addresses calculated risks. And as far as safety records go, if you're a company that's addressing TRIR or DART rates or things, and that's your primary dashboard, you may not see a substantial change because you're all those are lagging indicators. But if you're a company that's really addressing leading indicators as a part of your safety scorecard, it'll show substantially, right? Employee morale, safety engagement, maybe it's QR code engagement, things of that nature. So just something to think about.
That's a great, because it takes it outside of the workplace too, right? That you gave a very great analogy as far as like the texting thing. I have been guilty at a time. I try not to, right? But every once in a while, it's like, oh, I was waiting on something. I can just write a real quick, like, thumbs up or something. But that second can make a huge difference in, not just our lives, but we also need to consider the people that are on the receiving end of what could probably happen. But it's very honest that, very honest. All right, that was a great one, guys. So the next question I have is, I've heard the term functioning alcoholics. Similarly, I've also heard and seen videos highlighting invisible depression. In fact, I've seen it firsthand at work with a coworker who ultimately took his life. What are signs we should be looking for besides the obvious traditional depression and mental health crisis signs? We work many times more hours with our coworkers than our own families. With a wife, father, father-in-law, and a nephew, I'm familiar with the traditional signs of mental health issues and PTSD. How should we best approach the subject with coworkers?
Yeah, I can chime in here. So we do spend a lot of time with our coworkers, often more times than families. What we want to start looking for is just changes in behavior, and they don't have to be big changes in behavior. So we might notice if they're showing up to work a little bit later, maybe the way they're communicating with their colleagues is a little bit different. How they might be showing up to work. So if their physical appearance looks different. So we want to start just noticing things, maybe things that they're saying, and then try to start having those conversations earlier. The longer we wait to get someone access to mental health, the worse their signs are going to become. So the sooner we can just start having some of those conversations and connecting them with the resources, the easier that recovery time is going to be, or I should say the shorter that recovery time is going to be. And then when we think about resources too, everyone kind of thinks about therapy sometimes as the first kind of resource that you get, but we want to meet people where there are. So if maybe they're having some challenges and therapy seems like too big for maybe what you're seeing, you might point them to employee resource groups. You might point them to ERG group, or sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. I'm so sorry. I don't know why my mind is going the employee benefits, any sort of employee benefits that they have. But pointing them to the resources sooner, so that way they can get the help that they need, and just start having the conversations, right? Every conversation doesn't have to be huge. It might just be a quick check-in. Hey, how are you doing? How are things going for you? Or do you want to talk? So just starting those conversations earlier before it gets to be huge and seeing some of those larger signs and symptoms.
Awesome. Timing does play a big factor a lot of times. Cameron, Sebastian, either one of you want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I can. So I'll take a little bit of a different approach here, and I'll say, as far as the question of some different signs that you potentially could look at, obviously the traditional signs are traditional for a reason. But I'll say this: in my, in 100+ companies that I've been blessed to go into, one key thing that we see pretty repetitively is called flatlining. It's where employees don't have highs and lows; they're just flat the whole time. And somebody emotionally should have highs and they should have lows. So if I was to throw just like an extra tidbit out there, is I would pay attention to people who are flatlining, who they don't appear to have really good days or really bad days. They just stay the same emotionally through a significant period of time. And as far as how would we address it? So the way that I address it at Caddy is I let everybody know that we typically don't see people at work. And what I mean by that is we have a job to do, we have a work order to fill. I'm taking this paper to machine 7. We have we have trusses to get up, so I'm talking to the crane operator to throw it up. And because our head is always on a swivel, our head is down, we're reading papers, we're not really seeing the people that are in front of us that we're working with. Where we may really realize those nuances and those differences with family, even though we spend a little bit less time, is because we're focused on our family members. We know how our mom typically acts. We know how our dad typically acts, brothers and sisters. So one thing I would say is really spend the time to understand. One thing that I introduce to a lot of companies is when they have their weekly meetings, in the beginning, it seems like it's a waste of time, but I promise you it's not, is every person at the table has to discuss a personal high and a personal low. What is something that's really good in your personal life, and what is something that's challenging in your personal life? And through the adaptation of those meetings over a period of time, it makes it significantly easier to identify these people's challenges, especially if you start seeing redundancies and challenges. And then lastly, for me, is really make sure that if you're going to have a conversation with somebody, that you choose the correct setting, right? We're not doing this in front of other employees. And also, we're also not doing this in a closed room that's 5 foot by 5 foot where the person feels suffocated, right? Do it on a walk through the parking lot, go grab a coffee, go do something like that. Make sure that it's a very open experience. It's just not closed and interrogatory. As somebody who is a forensic interviewer, that's not a good feeling for people on the other side of that table to have. And then make sure that you're not making assumptions. One thing that I will see by employees is they want to help and they mean the most by what they say, but they're making an assumption about that person's personal life because they feel like they know it and they understand it. And in my opinion, what I try to tell everybody is don't make assumptions. As much as you think you know what they're going through, even if you feel like you've gone through a similar thing, they're not going to agree with you that you understand what they're going through at all. So just make sure the conversations are open, you have them in the right places, and you don't have to be a therapist, right? All you need to be is somebody that's just safe for them to come have conversations with, and don't make assumptions. That's kind of my synopsis on that. That could be a long discussion.
That's great. And like for a lot of people who are like for me, I'm a natural like problem solver, right? So it does take a bit of mindfulness to just sit and listen. And sometimes people just want it like if you get them to talk, don't mess it up by putting in your own 2 cents because that can sit there and shut somebody down in a heartbeat, you know. Maybe the situation is exactly likes or sounds exactly like something that you've been through, but you're not that person in that situation. So those are some great points, Cameron. Thank you. Sebastian, do you have anything to add? I know there's a lot to go after these two.
Mhm. But I think it's an important subject, right? And I really liked what Cameron said about the highs and lows, and it made me think of someone that I've known a very very long time, and he has a lot of stories when it comes to alcoholism, and he was a crane operator, so talking about someone who was able to work even when he had several drinks. It was just amazing. But at the same time, he was telling me like at some point the high of my day was the idea that I was going to go to the bar in an hour from now, or 2 hours from now, or half an hour. That was the high of my day. So so I think what Cameron said is very true. When that becomes sort of the and he said I wasn't married at that time. I didn't have kids, and everything changed at that moment as well for me. But he said that when he was in that sort of mode, what changed everything for him was someone started talking to him about it, And so for one, it was because you can ignore it, especially with functional alcoholics or people that are able to do their job, and they're not causing any incidents or accidents, but sort of everyone knows that, they've been already opening the bottle, since early afternoon or something like that, but still they're able to do what they're supposed to do. People will just ignore it, right? Because it's not a subject, and everybody does what they are, what they want to do. But he said, that person came to me and said, like, look, and without any judgment, because again, we're not therapists, and people not therapists, and the judgment basically also is something that needs to be avoided. But essentially, when someone came to him and happened to be a buddy of his, and he said, like, look, I'm really concerned about you, and maybe not because you're going to cause any incidents or accidents, but I see that you're not doing well. It has an impact on you, so on your health, on your physical health. And in the moment that buddy of his started talking to him about it, they he sort of recognized that, yeah, this was maybe a problem, and at the same time, then he started looking out and reaching out for solutions. And he's a great guy. I mean, I've known him for many years, and he speaks about it very openly, because he's now helping people that have the same issue that he used to have.
It's awesome. I'm glad that happened, because not everybody's receptive, right? They're
But
automatic.
talking about it without making judgments, but just saying to people, like, look, it's affecting your physical health. It's not it's over a longer period of time. You don't win with these types of things. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's great insight, and that's I think relatable probably for a lot of people too. Um, so this next question that I have, sorry, this is not for Melissa, because I know your background, but for Sebastian and Cameron, how can HR and EHS professionals work together with mental health issues? Who should be taking the reins on what?
I can take a. I think both functions um, have a different, even though they work together, and they're supposed to work together, they have different focuses and different emphasis. The way that I see HR would be that these are the people that are at work, at the office. They work on compliance. They work on people getting into the company, onboarding them, and everything else. While EHS has a very direct perspective on what's happening on the job site, right? EHS people are walking the job, and walking the workplace all the time. So they have that immediate perspective on what's happening with people, and meeting with those people all the time. While HR may be a little remote sometimes from and especially if these are medium-sized companies. Not saying like the smaller companies where those two roles may be embodied by one person. Um, but I think there is a very, very important way that those two functions can work together, where HR can be very, very important into uh, budgeting efforts and initiatives on mental health. And that's typically, I think, something that HR can really do. Um, putting mental health as a tactical or even strategic uh, priority for the company is something that typically HR can do, while again the EHS people they can continue to be that first line, knowing how people are doing, um, connecting with them on a daily basis, etc. So I think it's very important they work together.
Awesome, thank you. I think that's a great point. Cameron?
Yeah. So, what I try to tell everybody about mental health or safety or any other initiative, it's not a department, right? It's a shared responsibility. So, The initiative for me when it comes to mental health is the opposite of this. It isn't who is HR or EHS or operations or whoever, because when it comes to mental health, in my opinion, there's more gain ground by having conversations across the table than up the chain, right? So if we have frontline employees who have to then go talk to a supervisor that then talks to a manager that then relays to HR, all it takes is one person in that chain to not follow through. And now you're putting the mental health and well being of somebody completely on the line. So, really, what I say is if there should be any champion through this process, it should be your frontline leaders, your supervisors, your foremans, etc. Because and I'm sure everybody in this at some point in their career has heard it, right? Of the misconnect in communication, right? Even when it comes to training, hey, I can show you how I do it, or I can tell you how they want you to do it. And we start taking people's mental health into that, and we start trying to find the easiest way to go about trying to solve it. You're not helping the person. So for me, it's really the frontline leaders who own the most responsibility there, and then training them and having them understand when they need to escalate it. The reality is that escalation is a critical part of that. But how the person is treated from the first time they decide they want to have a conversation or they want to speak up is gonna set the tone for everything else. If I come to you and I say, "Listen, I'm not feeling good today," you don't ask any questions, you don't dive in, and you say, "Suck it up, rub some dirt on it, go back to work." You just solidified that relationship with that employee for the rest of existence. And the reality is that you may have employees who regularly come and tell you problems and they're always quote unquote complainers. It doesn't matter. The reality is that we should be taking 100% of it serious every single time. And at some point, if you find out an employee is not a part of the culture and values of the company, you make decisions elsewhere. But the reality is that we have to train the frontline leaders. They are the first people to they're in transparently. Like for me, even prior as an EHS manager, a frontline leader came in contact with an employee 75 times more than I ever did. So for me, ownership lies frontline leadership, but the reality is it's a shared responsibility among everywhere, and you should be putting as much ability for communication. One thing that a lot of the companies that I work with do is they add QR codes throughout the building that allow the employee can scan it and submit things, and those get submitted to various functions. That allows a very convenient methodology. So the more ability that you have for communication, and the more ability for somebody to assist where needed, the better. But yeah, frontline leaders for me.
Awesome. I think that is a great point. It's more eyes on the situation, and an employee may not feel comfortable going to either. And I mean, even if with the HR person, maybe your safety manager is a little bit more standoffish, and the employee doesn't feel comfortable going to them. But maybe they talk to the HR person on a regular basis. So that's great points from both of you. Um, so the training part that you brought up, that actually kind of is a segue to the next question that was asked. So what are some cost-effective ways to improve mental health awareness in the facility without spending money, or maybe just even low budget costs?
I can chime in here. And I'm going to answer the question, but I'm also going to push back on the question a little bit, because by not investing in your company's mental health and your employees' mental health, there's other costs that you're incurring. So that's going to show up in injuries, that's going to show up in absenteeism, that's going to show up in your benefits. So I'd encourage, if there isn't really a budget, see if you can get creative with your budget in other ways. So maybe that's checking with your insurance company and see if they have wellness dollars. Maybe if you have a training area, if there's any sort of training budget that you can share, if there's any resource groups that you can connect with, and see if there's any sort of mutual fit there. So seeing if you can get creative with the budgets, even if you don't feel like you have one, to start to invest into some of those different training opportunities, to train your frontline leaders, to train your employees. That being said, I will 100% answer the question with no budget. So there's several different ways that you can do it. One, again, making it a part of company culture. So that can be during your new hire process of making sure that employees are very aware of where they can get extra support, whether that's through their health insurance, whether that's through their EAP. If situations arise, what are the resources that they have available? I think Cameron made some really good examples of having those QR codes all over the place. That's a great idea. So making sure that it's not just a one-time thing, that people throughout the year, throughout their tenure, they have access to those different resources that are available. Also, some other things that you might want to work with your HR department. There's all those months, right? There's all those months, those holidays, those things like that. Bring that into the conversation. Have some programming available. Have some reshare your resources. So if it's May, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Start sharing some information about that. October, there's World Mental Health Day. So you've got these like little cues throughout the year where you can just kind of re-push some of these conversations. The other thing is just investing, whether it's internal or external, but if you can, investing internally into your leaders of how can you have some of these conversations with your employees.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you. It's there is a cost. You're paying one way or the other if you're not doing something. So thanks for that. So Sebastian, Cameron, either one of you want
Yeah,
to
I can jump in. So this is the risk management coming out of me, but the reality is, regardless of what state you work in, what insurance program you have, right, there's EAPs that cover everything, and it's typically already built into your benefit package. The employee assistance programs are fantastic, and depending on what broker you have, or if you're a part of a captive, it's even better at times because they typically give you substantial funds back on what's called preventative safety measures. I know one of the captives for a company that I'm helping right now gets $200,000 back a year for preventative nature. But emergency action plans or EAP, emergency action plans. Employee assistance programs are fantastic. The other thing I would look into is grants. So if you're in the state of Pennsylvania, which is where my headquarters is at, there's a thing called WebNet PA that gives companies $100,000 worth of training a year. And there's dozens and dozens and dozens of topics. And it essentially equates out to, you can get up to $2,000 per person, but up to $100,000 per company. Most states have some rough program similar to this. So if you're needing to build out a program and you're like, listen, Cam, I don't have the funds. One, reach out to me. That's literally what I do. Is I get EHS, do cost modeling and get them budgets. We just had a company that had no budget this year. They have 1.2 million. So but a part of that's coming from knowing what resources to go to. So WebNet PA is fantastic if you're in Pennsylvania. If you're in other places, there's going to be other resources, grants that are associated to coming back into or giving back into what's preventative safety measures, and mental health is one of those. The other thing, like outside of all of the funding, as far as no funding goes, yeah, QR codes are fantastic. They're one of the most, they're easy on employee surveys. The employee surveys tend to really favor like 80-90% of employees like them because they don't have to call somebody. They don't feel like they're being recorded. They can just scan it. They can do it on their own time. They don't have to try to walk around and find a cubby hole that they can talk to somebody on the phone and not get heard. So those are great. The other thing I would recommend for safety professionals, you have the 12 months of safety. If you're doing toolbox talks, most of my clients do. We break it down into 52 weeks of toolbox talks. So each week is just a topic, and then each day is a different genre of the topic. Every day have a mental, as far as awareness goes, each day have a quote, right? It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be way over the top, but by continuously mentioning at least something every day that you do your toolbox talk, or if you're on a construction site, you're in mining, you're in oil and gas or something like that, you're doing a pre-shift huddle, or you're doing, say you're going over the site safety plan because you're doing something that has a high potential for fatality or serious injury, just include that, right? If you're in safety, that confined space work and mental health is the opposite of you want, let alone any other work that you do in safety, but confined space work and mental health is not what you want. I've seen a lot of panic attacks underground. I've seen a lot of really rough situations. So, but just by including that, and then don't put a lot of pressure. Let them know, listen, we have this job we've got to do. Here's, whatever quote you want to give about the importance of mental health, and that it is okay to step away, right? It is okay to take a breather. It is okay to step away, but definitely leverage all the resources. If you have any questions about the resources in your area, the grants, or getting money back for insurance or premiums or anything like that, happy to help anybody that I can. But there's a lot of money out there that most I think last year in PA, like 60% of all funds was not divvied out. So.
Wow, that's incredible. You may need to get with Melissa too. Like maybe there's a way that she can see about partnering with some of those grant programs. Yeah, you make a great point on having it like if the conversation is always front of mind, it does make it more comfortable. People are more likely to feel like this is normal because, let's face it, a lot of us grew up with that stigma that mental health, like you just suck it up and you deal with it. So making it, I guess, work a safe place to have those discussions just by, a casual talk here or there, or just, a single line of some sort of information is better than nothing at all. Um, Sebastian, you have anything to add to those?
I think I get this question a lot because when we have clients, when I go to their job sites, I meet with the project manager, I meet with the superintendents, and the great thing about those meetings is finding out that people have great intentions, right? They want to help out, they want to do something, but the budget is always some, it's always a problem, right? I don't have money for this, so how can I still do something? So, and I think Cameron and Melissa already mentioned several things. I would like to mention three more. One is signage, right? We have in all of our workplaces, we have a lot of signage about PPE, about safety policies, compliance, and stuff like that. But consider also signage around the 988 number, right? And you have so many resources out there that are completely free, that are very, very well run, professionally run. The 988 number, there is veterans hotlines, there is substance abuse hotlines, etc. So so this is something that I always say, like, look, if you have signage that also promotes that type of help, not only are you giving people those resources, but also it kind of breaks the ice, right? It shows also that this is a subject for you, that people can talk about that type of subjects as well, and not only PPE and compliance. So that's number one. Number two, I think there is a whole bunch, and I think Cameron and Melissa already talked about it a little bit, but don't underestimate the number of resources that you can get from unions and local community, whether it's local associations, whether it's local centers that are involved with mental health or physical well-being and can help. Um, I had a superintendent. They actually had they called out local association, and that local association came out, and they have a van. And inside that van, they have services that they can provide, medical services as well for the workers on the job. So don't underestimate. And it's easy with a Google research, or even with the artificial intelligence resources everyone probably has nowadays. It's very easy to find those local community, local resources that you can that are only asking to help you. So that, and unions as well, by the way. So signage, unions, and local community. And then I think, even though it's a little bit of budget, but there is so much advantage. I think the mental health first aid training is where it all starts. It's if you have, and again, I've seen the difference. I've discussed the difference with people in the field. When you have people that have gone through that training of mental health first aid on your job, on your workplace, it changes everything, because those people know not only how to identify certain things, but they also know how to react. They're not therapists, but they are a great resource for people on the job that may have some that may struggle. So I think the mental health first aid is really a great place to start. It's becoming very available everywhere, and it's usually not very expensive. So and again, having one or two people on the workplace that have that training makes a whole lot of difference.
Thank you. That was a lot of great additional resources. And I know, well, yeah, the signage is huge because if it's out of sight, it's out of mind.
Yep.
And you never know. Like I used to always laugh about the signs that were behind the toilet stall doors, but like it makes you stop and think about it, right? So like if you are in a position where maybe you might want to call and you see it every single day, you never know. Like just a single piece of paper can make all the difference in somebody's life.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, and the mental health first aid, I mean, we've got Melissa here who actually has it. And I know she's running, she's running a few testers right now. So if you are interested in hearing more about that, reach out to her. So we are out of time. I very much am grateful for all of you sharing your vast knowledge of such an incredible topic, such an important topic. It's very close to my heart, personally. So I do appreciate you. Thank you for sharing all of that. I hope that so there were a couple questions that didn't get answered. I don't know if you guys are willing, if I email those to you, if you might be willing to kind of just type something up. We can throw that into, or if you want to go onto the Safety Nights platform and just look at those and throw something up on that little chat feed, it would be great. And also, if in the chat, if you wouldn't mind just leaving your information there, if people want to get a hold of you, how they can get a hold of you. And for everyone else, there is a mental health in the workplace room. It's in the bottom right hand corner, just below NSC. So they may be hopping in and out of there. I'm not really sure what their time allowance is for today, but just hit them up and take advantage of the wealth of information that these three have. But thank you. Um, nice. All right, so next on our list, I need to have my glasses on. Sorry, I've been hiding behind the no screen most of today, so you guys did not see that. So I do wear glasses. So next we have Randy Milliron. Hopefully I said that properly. Randy, I